Hello, welcome back, and this is Studmuffin 1986, and today I'm going to be doing a guide on how to play with the Tier 4 British medium tank Matilda. Now, first off, I'd like to give a shout out to XX Trilogy XX for shooting me an in-game message and needing some help not only with how to play with this tank, but also on how to effectively earn credits with it as well. So in going in and looking at it, you'll notice from the upper left hand corner that it is a medium tank, and the purpose of a medium tank is to spot and flank. However, this is another tank that also bends the rules, being that its stats say otherwise, meaning this is a very heavy tank and also pretty slow compared to a lot of other medium tanks, so spotting and flanking with this thing is not the most effective way to play with this tank. However, this tank is more so played like a heavy tank, and I'll go in to show you a little bit why. So let's go ahead and look at its armor. So when looking at the Matilda, you can see compared to another Tier 4 cannon aiming at this thing that it really doesn't have that bad of armor. You're not really looking at 100% chance of hitting this thing, and even with most other tanks, even though this is the M3 shooting at it, don't have as good of penetration as the M3 Elite, so they're going to have a much harder time penetrating this tank. This has got a lot of armor, and just a very well built, great for side scraping. As you can see, as I'm shifting my tank back and forth, you can see that the armor difference becomes a little bit more angled, and so it's harder for your enemies to hit you. So you want to be shifting and keeping yourself angled when enemies have their cannons focused on you. So this is a great position for side scraping, keeping the front of your tank protected behind a wall. You're peeking out over a side, and you can see with the amount of armor, you're very well protected. Unlike if you were just facing the enemy head on, your armor is much flatter, and they have a much greater chance of being able to penetrate you. So the key thing with this tank is to keeping yourself angled, and if they're trying to get some shots out of some weak points, taking their time, just shift back and forth quite a bit. So even as you can see here with your armor very flat against the enemy, it makes it very easy or easier for the enemy to be able to penetrate you. And with the rear being the weakest spot of the tank, you want to protect that as much as you can. So just a little bit more of an example of what I mean by shifting back and forth. You can see how the shades of blue become darker and lighter, meaning darker, harder to hit, and lighter, easier to hit. So gun depression is really good at a -10, as you can see, giving you really good cannon angling when coming over higher ground and needing to point your cannon down to get those really good shots on enemies. And also with the tank, with its 360-degree rotating turret and that -10-degree gun depression, it's going to give you great cannon flexibility of moving around to be able to get your enemies. But once again, you've got to make sure or take into consideration that this turret is pretty slow. So going in and looking at the cannon that's most popular use, 56 alpha damage is very low, 151 penetration is good, 19.35 is great for a rate of fire, and the aim time and dispersion is also very good and accurate to pinpoint those weak spots on enemy tanks, which is a very strong attribute, being you don't have to take a whole lot of time aiming. So being credit conservative, I would still highly recommend getting the multi-purpose restoration pack. Don't really need everything else, as that just enhances the performance of your tank. Provisions I don't use because they're very expensive, so don't need those. And then for your ammunition, being it already has pretty good penetration, I would say you're fine with just using the 80 AP rounds and not using APCR rounds, as those can be very expensive and make you lose credits faster. And for equipment, the gun rammer, the vents to enhance performance overall, and then the coated optics to increase your view range when needed. So when going in and looking at the maneuverability of this tank, you can tell it's not the fastest. which is the reason why you can't play with it like most medium and light tanks, being able to spot and flank. You can see that it's functioning more like a heavy. And even though it has slow traverse and turning, you want to utilize both your turning of your hull and your turret to help you against being flanked by medium or light tanks. Let's go into some gameplay. So, with the Matilda, one of the things being that you're going to be most likely put in positions on the map where medium or light tanks start off, is you never want to be completely going solo, going off on your own. If everyone goes toward the town and you're up in the hills, is not just to go completely off in the hills by yourself, because the tanks coming towards you is going to be the other team's medium and light tanks, and you can easily get flanked and circled to death in this tank. So playing more like a heavy, and I'm also trying to protect myself a little bit by going along the very far left where the border is, so in case I get outnumbered or they try to flank me or circle of death me, I've got obstacles around me to help protect me that I can back up against. Now you will notice by looking at my tank during this gameplay, anytime I'm coming across or facing enemies, you will notice that I'm keeping my tank at a very angled position, or just trying to make it so that I'm barely peeking my turret over and cannon so I can get those really good shots. The Matilda has a pretty solid frontal turret for a tier 4 vehicle, and so utilizing it is really key. So I've got way more armor than these guys, and because I've got good teammates around me that are helping and applying pressure, I'm also moving up on these guys, just causing them a lot of problems. So going in, applying a lot of pressure against those light tanks when you have friends around you to help you is kind of like in a way of how you would play with a heavy tank. Medium tanks get really intimidated by bigger tanks that have much better armor than they do, because putting a medium tank in a brawling situation isn't good for a medium tank against a heavy tank. So by doing that, it was able to scare them off. My team was able to close in. But if I would have been by myself, I would have not closed the distance between those medium and light tanks, because that would have made me a little bit more vulnerable to getting flanked. So here we are in another game. Once again, I'm moving with our team, coming up over here to the left, and I'm trying to be a much more aggressive player, being that I am one of the higher tier tanks. They're going to have a much harder time penetrating me, and I can rely on my armor even a little bit more, being that I'm playing with tanks of my same tier or lower tier. And even though I am being a little bit more aggressive, I'm not 100% completely relying on my armor. As you'll notice, I'm still using this big rock to protect me, and so if you're ever in a situation where you do have to rely on your armor 100%, you can angle and shift. However, it's never going to guarantee you 100% that you're going to be protected, whereas when you pop out from behind a rock, take a shot, and then back up again, you're insured with that protection. And so you'll notice, even with me popping out from around this rock, I'm still trying to keep my tank angled to increase the effectiveness of my armor, and knowing that just from looking at the stats earlier of the M3 Lee, being it does have a little bit better penetration, I'm trying to protect myself a little bit more. You can see our team here is falling apart, but I'm going to go ahead and start side scraping, being that the M3 Lee does have better penetration. You see, he just bounced right off me because my armor was angled. Here, so that he doesn't circle of death me, I shot his track. I'm just going to focus on him. So get rid of those faster tanks, as they can pose a bigger threat to you. And you'll notice here I'm using my hull and my turret
to turn simultaneously so that I can keep up with these faster tanks trying to circle of death me. Trying to angle here just a little bit more against this M3 to try to protect myself as much as possible, because I am having to rely on my armor here in this spot. I'm shifting back and forth, making it very difficult for this M3 to penetrate me, and because of that, I'm pretty sure that was able to save me. We'll just go ahead and finish off this last enemy here. So you can see, as we applied all the things that we went over to today, that was able to help me not only survive this round, but help us win. So thanks for watching. Once again, this is Stud Muffin 1986. Not proclaiming that I know everything, but just some information and things that I've learned to help me be a better player, and hope this helps others. Comment, let me know if you'd like me to do a review on any other tank. Thanks.